Our ACC Network studios alongside our most outstanding player, Luke Hancock. I am Jason Spells, and we are counting down to the introduction of Luke Murray as the new head coach for Boston College. The Eagles welcoming in the assistant from UConn, fresh off of a Final Four run. Luke, this is a program that's looking to rebuild and compete in the ACC, and they're going to one of the best programs in college basketball to do so.
Yeah, I got to know Luke Murray with his time at Louisville when he was under Chris Mack, a guy who's an ultimate competitor. He's actually gone 3 different places to continue to learn with Dan Hurley, Wagner, Rhode Island, and then obviously UConn helping to win championships there. I just think Boston College, you get an A+ for this hire on the front end. Fantastic job. I'm really excited for what Luke Murray's going to bring.
You take a look at what he was able to do once again. Louisville, Xavier, Rhode Island, but most importantly, UConn, that championship pedigree and that know-how will now reside in Chestnut Hill. And with that, let's take you to Chestnut Hill for the introduction of Luke Murray as the new Eagles head coach.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jack Dunn from Boston College, and I want to thank you for joining us today for this press conference to introduce the 14th head coach of BC men's basketball, the Clement and Izzy family head basketball coach at Boston College, Luke Murray from the University of Connecticut. I also want to extend a warm welcome to those of you who are joining us from the ACC Network, from Nesson, and from the BC Athletics YouTube channel. It's great to have you here with us in Chestnut Hill as we embark on an exciting new chapter in the history of BC men's basketball. The format for our conference is as follows. Athletic Director Blake James will make remarks from the podium. We'll then have a moment for photographers to get a photo of Coach Murray and Blake James here in front of the BC banner. Coach Murray will then make his remarks, and then we'll open it up for questions from the media. Given that this is a live broadcast, we ask media to state their name and media affiliation prior to their questions. So, it is a pleasure for me to introduce to you the William V. Campbell, Director of Athletics at Boston College, Blake James.
Thank you, Jack. Good afternoon, and thank you all so much for joining us today as we begin an exciting new chapter in the history of Boston College men's basketball. I want to begin by acknowledging Earl Grant for all he gave to Boston College during his tenure and for always being a tremendous ambassador for the university. We wish Earl and his family all the best. I also want to acknowledge Father Leahy and Father Jack for their continued support of BC Athletics. They are intimately involved in all of our significant decisions, and our partnership and alignment with campus is critical. Finally, I want to thank our student athletes, our staff, our donors, and our fans for lifting up BC Athletics and for allowing us to achieve our mission. We sought a new head basketball coach who could be successful in today's constantly changing world of college basketball. Someone with experience in assembling a roster and developing players. Someone with high integrity who shares the values of Boston College. Someone with the ability to ignite passion for our program and create excitement, and someone who wanted to be at Boston College. We found him in Luke Murray. From my first conversation with Luke, it was clear his enthusiasm and passion for the game is as strong as his desire to be at Boston College. Luke attended high school in Connecticut and graduated from Fairfield University and has deep ties to the Northeast. He started his career as the Director of Basketball Operations at Quinnipiac before stops at Post University, the University of Arizona, Wagner, Towson, Rhode Island, Xavier, Louisville, and now the University of Connecticut, who, as you probably are aware, are back in the Final Four again this weekend. Throughout our ongoing discussions, it became clear to me that Luke understands the unique landscape of college basketball at the highest levels, understands Boston, and understands the high standards of BC athletics. At UConn, Luke serves as primary architect of one of the nation's top offenses during his tenure, which includes back-to-back national championship runs in 23 and 24. He is known as an elite recruiter and an offensive mastermind who has been instrumental in developing 8 NBA players, including 3 lottery picks over the last 4 years. He has a proven blueprint for how to bring excellence and championships to Chestnut Hill, and that includes a fast-paced, unselfish, and tough brand of basketball that I'm confident will elevate the heights to new heights. Not only do we welcome Luke, we're also thrilled to welcome his family, his wife Kara, and their 4 children, Luke, Cash, Celine, and Layla, all to the BC family. Welcome, guys. I know you're here to hear from the new head coach, not from me. So without further ado, please join me in officially welcoming the Clement and Elizabeth Izzy family head men's basketball coach to Boston College, Luke Murray.
Blake, thank you so much. I can't tell you how grateful I am for this opportunity. I think from our very first conversations, Blake and I really seem to be aligned in our vision for Boston College basketball. And I couldn't be more excited to be here with my family today, with all these great supporters. It's an unbelievable honor, and I don't take it for granted, so thank you. I also want to thank Father Leahy and Father Jack. I had a great opportunity to spend time with them a couple weeks ago on campus, and similarly was taken by their vision for Boston College. I went to a Jesuit college myself, so the values and the standards of what Boston College is all about really identify for me. And I had a great opportunity to spend time talking about college basketball and the landscape of college athletics. And I think there's real alignment there between the two fathers and the Boston College athletic program. So I want to thank them for entrusting me with this opportunity as well. Also want to thank the entire search committee, Daniel Parker, Craig Anderson, all the members that I spoke throughout the entire process for their confidence and their faith in me. Again, as I mentioned, it's a great honor, and I'm very humbled by the opportunity to be the head basketball coach here. I kind of want to start by acknowledging where I'm coming from. And I know, based on sort of what I've heard on social media and some people that have come up to me, the University of Connecticut is not the most beloved program around here. So please, I'm going to try to serve as a conduit of peace and try to bring everybody together. I've already started working on the UConn side of things, so I'm going to do my job here in Boston as well to try to mend some fences. But I just want to acknowledge the University of Connecticut and Coach Hurley, Dave Benedict, our athletic director at UConn. UConn really changed my life and changed my family's life. When Coach Hurley offered me the opportunity to come back to Connecticut 5 years ago, I know for certain that I wouldn't be sitting here in front of all of you and with Blake and this entire BC community if not for my time at UConn over the course of the last 5 years. And again, I'm so thankful and appreciative. Coach Hurley gave me my first chance to be an assistant basketball coach when I was 24 years old, and probably totally undeserving of the opportunity at the time. But I started there. I got $8,000 for the year. I sort of slept on the floor of my office. I shared with 2 other people. We had one school credit card that we passed around to every person in the athletic department. So if I wanted to go recruiting, I had to find the lacrosse coach who was off campus. But we made it work, and it was a special time for me. I learned a ton from Coach Hurley. And, I turned 41 tomorrow, so I would say for the last 17 years, he's been as impactful as any person in my life, outside of my immediate family here. And so I'm so grateful for him and all that he's taught me, and, I hope I can do him proud here. The players and the coaches that I've worked with at Connecticut as well, the assistant coaches, Kamani Young, Mike Nardi, Tom Moore, all of our support staff, our student managers, they play a huge role in our success every single day. I think sometimes when these sort of events take place, it's really easy to sort of make it about yourself. But I know for certain that I wouldn't be here if not for those coaches and those support staff members, and most significantly, the players. The guys like Donovan Klingon and Alex Caravan and Stephon Castle and Cam Spencer and Liam McNeely, and the other night, Braylon Mullins making a big shot for us. So, those guys make it a reality for all of us as coaches. And so I'm deeply grateful, for the time that I've spent with them, for them allowing me the opportunity to be their coach. And it's been a huge, huge part of my journey. As Blake mentioned, I also want to acknowledge Earl Grant. And, I don't know Earl well, but in my time around Earl Grant, he's really taken to me as a really decent and good human being. And, I know he put a lot of effort and time and energy into building this basketball program, so I wish him the very best in his career, and the same for his family. I want to address sort of the alumni, the fans, the students, the supporters. I see my man Jay Murphy over here, you know, a BC legend in his time, and all the great players that have come here. I don't want to leave anyone out, but you know, I'm in my office the other day, and I'm looking at Tyrese Rice and Jared Dudley and all these great players that have come before, Troy Bell, the legends of the game, and I want them to know that this is their program, you know, and to really bring them back into the fold and really embrace, you know, them being very much a part of what we're doing every single day. And, you know, they've really set the foundation of the success of this program. And I know it's been a while, right? It's been since 2009 since we've enjoyed that NCAA tournament. And, you know, that's our focus. That's going to be our focus every single day, is working to get ourselves back into position to be an NCAA tournament team, to hear our team announced on Selection Sunday. And, you know, that work starts soon. You know, the portal opens up on Tuesday. Summer workouts open up. So it's going to be kind of a whirlwind for everybody. You know, I'm making the trip to Indianapolis tomorrow. I'm going to be in Indianapolis hopefully through Monday night. Get back here on Monday night late, Tuesday morning early, and then, you know, hit the ground running, you know, in terms of getting into the gym with these guys that are here, you know, bringing in a great staff. You know, I've already kind of established a lot of what that's going to look like. Guys with very diverse backgrounds, very skilled coaches, and people that really exemplify what we're going to ask out of our student athletes, you know, that model the sort of behavior that we're going to ask for from these guys. So to the fans, you know, to the alumni, to the former players, it's going to be an exciting time. You know, I don't think I'm as bold as my guy, Coach Hurley, to say you better get us now, but that's sort of how I'm feeling. You know, I'm not quite there yet. I'm not saying that, so don't quote me as that. But it's going to look very different. You know, Boston College men's basketball program is going to look a little bit different than it's looked in the past. And, you know, I think our style of play is going to be one that is aesthetically pleasing. Fans and players and supporters of the program are going to enjoy to watch us play. It's going to be a game that is based on unselfishness and movement and sharing the basketball and shooting and scoring. But at the same time, we're going to be a very tough and competitive and hungry basketball team. And we're going to be prepared above all else. You know, when BC takes the floor, as a fan, as a supporter, as someone in the administration, an alumni, you're going to be able to have the confidence that the team that takes the court is prepared for competition. And, you know, that's going to be our focus every single day, is to be as tough and competitive and as hardworking as any group in the country. You know, and I met with a lot of the guys yesterday on the team, and one of the sort of messages that kept coming up was an ability to really play for the front of the uniform. You know, and I know that can sound a little bit cliche, and it's hard to do in sort of the climate that we're in right now in college athletics, is to really put that at the forefront. But if I've learned anything from Coach Hurley, I think that's been the most impressive thing. You know, at Connecticut, we really play for the name on the front of the jersey, and our players are able to sort of put together a group of people that are selfless in the way that they go about their work every single day. And I want to bring that back to this community. I want to bring this back to this culture, that people take a lot of pride in playing for BC. You know, and I think fairly or unfairly, you know, we have to change the narrative a little bit in the way that BC basketball is viewed across the country. And I think the strengths and all the advantages of being here, this amazing city, this amazing campus, you know, unbelievable institution, world-renowned from an academic perspective, you know, all the great successes of BC teams in the past. I think we really got to dive into that and promote that and be inspired by that. And that's our plan. You know, that's going to be our plan from day one here. You know, I see Coach O'Brien in the back, and I know that he's, you know, working to do the very same thing with the football program. We actually share a mutual friend in Jeff Van Gundy, and so we got a chance to talk on the phone the other day. We got to go to some dinners. We got to raise some money. We got to start working, you and I. But I'm excited to partner with Coach and obviously with Blake. And I'm a big football fan, so if you'll have me, I'd love to kind of check out practice and be around the program a little bit. So, you know, along those same lines, you know, I think packing Conti Forum and making that a really hard place to play. I've played games in that building and felt what it feels like when there's a real crowd in there and there's a real enthusiasm and energy. And, you know, we've got to get that back from the students. We've got to get that back from, you know, starting right here at the ground level, the people that walk by that building every single day have to be inspired by the idea of being in there and being passionate about our program. And I think the team that we put on the floor, and the style of play that we exhibit, I think makes that a lot easier. And that'll be a focus of ours from day one, is building that sort of community right here on campus that people are excited to come to games. You know, I want to recruit locally. You know, I want to recruit nationally. I want to recruit internationally. We're going to kind of be all over in terms of our focus from a recruiting perspective. But I know it's really important to me that if they're really good players in New England, in Massachusetts in particular, that they stay home, you know, and that they play for BC, because some of the best players in the country are playing right here in our backyard, and we have to make a concerted effort to keep those guys home and have them be a part of our program here at BC. And, you know, I think for this group, you know, when you're watching our team, you know, these guys are going to be totally committed to the idea of just making all of those sort of commitments on a daily basis. You know, it's everything. It's everything. And it's another lesson that I've learned from Coach Hurley. You know, it starts in the way that you start your morning. You know, how you wake up, right? How you eat breakfast, how prepared you are. Do you make your bed? Like, are you focused for the day? Are you committed to the task at hand? I think everything is aligned in the way that you have to operate to really find success. And that's one of the things that I'm excited to work with some of these players on, is just sort of resetting their daily habits and the way that they approach, you know, what they're doing academically, what they're doing in the weight room, what they're doing on the basketball floor. So that's a big part of our vision, and it's a big part of what we're going to be pushing for moving forward. Again, I understand the challenge at hand. I'm excited about it. I can't wait to get going. It's going to be a new era of BC basketball. It's going to start right away. It's going to become an incredibly exciting brand of basketball, and I think something that people can really get behind. So again, I'm very grateful for all of you for being here today, for Blake James for offering me this opportunity, and I can't wait to get to work. So go Eagles.
So photographers, we'll do a quick photo up here in front of the banner, and then we'll turn it over to the media for questions.
Here we go. Thanks, Blake.
Thank you. Let's open it up to Q&A, and again, we'll ask you from the media to state your name and media affiliation. Yes, we have a microphone here that we'll pass along.
Luke, Jimmy Golan from the Associated Press.
Hi.
Can you touched on this a little bit, but can you give us a sense of what your last couple weeks has been like, even down to getting the time off today to come here?
It's been wild. Thanks for the question. It's been absolutely wild. I can't remember the first time we talked, but I think we were getting ready to play one of our last regular season games. Maybe it was the Big East tournament, and you know, we had a great conversation. And from that point on, it's been a little bit of just a crazy time. You know, ultimately signed the contract, sitting in Washington D.C., getting ready to play Michigan State in the Sweet 16 game, and you know, Coach Hurley came down to the lunch table that we were all sitting at. And he looked at me and said, "All right, Lukey, what is it?" And I said, "All right, I'm going." And he gave me a big hug. And I had the contract on my iPad, and I signed it on my iPad, all sitting there. And then we went out and played the Michigan State game, and you know, got up the next morning. I had the Duke scout, so I've been sort of working on the Duke preparation for the last handful of days. And so it was sort of trying to manage that while having conversations with everybody back here. Talking to potential staff members, you know, getting everything sort of organized behind the scenes. So it's been chaotic for sure. We won the Duke game. We got back to Connecticut at about 2 in the morning. It was probably 3:30 by the time the kids went to bed, and got up Monday morning and drove up here to Boston. Spent all day in the office meeting with a lot of these guys, and you know, obviously here with all of you today. Tomorrow morning, I'm going back to Connecticut, and we're flying to Indianapolis. I'm going to be in Indy all week, and hopefully celebrating a national championship on Monday night. But it's been wild, but I'm so appreciative. You know, honestly, I mean, could you ask for, you know, a better set of circumstances? So I'm very excited to be here. I'm super pumped for the team in Connecticut and what we've been able to accomplish. But this has just been probably the week of a lifetime, I would say.
Look, I mean, I'm Alan Siegel, and welcome to Boston, and congratulations. As Blake mentioned, and you referred to, the landscape of college basketball has changed over the last several years. There's been inequality and equality among teams.
Right.
Have you been given any assurances by the administration that you will be able to compete within the ACC and also college basketball as a whole as it exists today?
I have. And, we have plans in place to continue to become more and more competitive in that regard, as it pertains to NIL, rev share, and all the different inner workings of, as you mentioned, the current landscape of college basketball. But yes, Blake and the entire team, including the Father Leahy, Father Jack, gave a pretty clear message about the direction of Boston College athletics and sort of our place in the climate that we currently operate in. And I'm excited about the direction that we're headed in.
Hi, Luke. Ken Powtak, AP. Welcome to Boston, by the way. There's a perception around the program that maybe from the outside that this is a tougher market because it's a pro sports market.
Right.
So how do you answer that? And also on top of that, growing up in Connecticut, were you a Red Sox or Yankee fan?
Good question. I think as far as it being a tougher market, it kind of goes back to what I mentioned briefly earlier, which is that I think we have to use it as a positive. One of my good friends is Joe Mazzulla. I talked to him this morning. And I think using that as a position of strength for our program, having people, our players, when they come in and take visits, be excited about the idea of being in one of the greatest sports towns in the world, and being around the Celtics and around the Patriots and the Red Sox and all the enthusiasm that comes with it being a pro town. But at the same time, I think it's about identifying guys that are excited about being great college basketball players. And I think if we're able to put a successful product on the court, Boston, and I don't pretend to know Boston as well as all of you, but I know Boston is a sports town in general, and so pro sports or college sports, if you have a winner and you play an exciting brand of whatever sport you're playing, you're going to have people in the crowd and supporting you, and I have no doubt that the same thing will be true here at BC. And I have to come clean, I'm a Cubs fan. My dad is raised in Chicago, and he turned me into a diehard Cubs fan, so I'm supporting the lovable losers. But yeah, I guess I'm going to have to get myself and my family over to Fenway for sure.
Coach Mike Galtieri, Lights, Camera, Sports. Can you address specifically how much revenue share NIL BC basketball will have next year?
Blake?
No, Mike, that's not something we discussed publicly for a variety of reasons.
For potential recruits, it's a good selling point.
It's not something we discussed publicly for a variety of reasons.
Okay, Coach, go back to
Have
your
to have Blake with me at all times.
just going back to your time. Take me back. Waterbury, Connecticut, post-university, 17-10 record. Head coach Mike Donnelly hired you.
Yeah.
To now, did you envision this day here?
I did. I probably shouldn't have, but I did. I envisioned it. It's fitting. My mom is here. I should have mentioned my mom. My mom is, she has the baby, so she's not here anymore. But I looked over there. I just saw a coat. I saw no human being. But she was sort of the first person that really gave me confidence that I could do this. And I can't imagine anyone having a better mom. And so yeah, she was probably the one that instilled that belief, justifiably or not, that I could do this, that I could be a coach. And yeah, I mean, going back to those early days, Tom Moore, who I worked with at Connecticut for the last 5 years, he was my first boss. He was the director of operations. I was the director of operations for him at Quinnipiac. And but yeah, even at those early stages of my career, this has always been the goal and the dream to be in a position like this. And I couldn't be more grateful and humbled by the opportunity.
Hi, Luke. Welcome. Ari Alexander, 7 News. You mentioned this program has challenges. How would you describe those challenges, and what is your plan to overcome those challenges?
Well, I mean, I think the first challenge is just that right now we're not winning enough games, and I think that sort of leads into a perception that people have of the program and sort of where it stands within the ACC, where it stands nationally. And that's the number one job. That's my number one responsibility here is to change that. And so I think the way that we construct our roster, the way that we play basketball, the actual style of play is going to be very different. And I say that with all due respect to previous styles of play. but we're going to really dive into an analytical model in terms of the way that we play, in terms of the way that we roster construct. We're going to have a very healthy shot diet. It's going to be one that mathematically makes sense. And so I think those things in concert with putting together a really good team, a really strong roster made up of talented guys is going to result in W's. And, once you start winning games, like we talked about, the fan support grows, the community support grows, the alumni commitment grows. And, again, I think some of those challenges that we look at right now, they start to dissipate a little bit.
I'm Julian. I'm from the Globe. Congratulations, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too.
Blake, and Luke. For Luke, how did you feel? What did you feel about this job when you were talking to Blake? Made you feel like you were being set up for success once you got here? And then for Blake, in sort of describing the job to him, how did you feel like you could set him up to be successful here?
Did you hear that?
I didn't hear all of it, no.
I got to talk louder. It doesn't change.
Describing the job, how did you feel you could set it up for success?
So for me, the question was in
Yeah.
describing the job. Well, I think, first, and Luke touched on this in his comments, we got a great situation here in that we're in an international city that is a sports town, has been alluded to here. We're in the best conference in college athletics. I truly believe that in the ACC. We have the institution academically that we want to have to bring young people to get their degree. And so when you look at all those things, we needed the person to take us over the top competitively, and Luke just touched on it. We brought him in here to get wins, and so those are all things we looked at, and through our conversation from the very beginning, it became clear to me that Luke was the type of person that we wanted here to take that next step, to really elevate the heights to new heights, and I'm excited to be here with them. There's a lot of things that we have to continue to work on. This is by no means set up right today the way it's going to continue to be, and those are things I'll work with Luke on, from revenue share and NIL, as was asked earlier, to where we need to be competitive, but we're committed to being competitive. And that message came from Father Leahy and Father Jack to me, and also I know to Luke in his conversation with them. So we're going to continue to build this, and I'm excited about the future.
Yeah, I would echo that same sentiment. I think the vision that was laid out to me was one that was really exciting, because it feels like the momentum is headed in a positive direction, and sort of what's been experienced over the course of the last couple of years is being worked to sort of be rectified, and that's part of my being here as well, and so I'm excited about the vision for the program, that Blake and the two fathers sort of expressed to me, and I have a lot of confidence in being here. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
So that we have time for the one-on-one with the media right at the front. After this, we'll take one more question.
Hey, Coach. Nick Petrali at WZBC Sports, Boston College Student Radio. Obviously, you mentioned a little earlier that attendance at Conti the last couple of years hasn't been great, but when it has, the team has really performed and there's a great energy. What's your message to the student base about confidence in the team and getting them to show up at Conti?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have to put myself out in the community. I have to get myself out and around the students, the student body as a whole. I want to get the players around the student body as a whole, and sort of kind of, bridge that gap a little bit and create a little bit more connectivity between the students and the team and the program. But I would say give us a shot, give us a chance, come to these games. I think you're going to see early on when we get started in our non-conference play that you're going to see a team that's emblematic of a lot of the things I've been talking about today in terms of the way that we play, the way that we share the game, the unselfishness, the toughness, the competitiveness that we play with. I think it's going to be a brand of basketball that people are going to enjoy, adults and students alike. And I think once they start seeing that and we sort of show proof of concept, that, like you mentioned, it's going to become a tremendous home court environment.
Today's a day to celebrate Luke Murray, but I'd be remiss if I didn't compliment the Murray kids. Kara and Luke, I've never met four nicer, more polite children in my life. I have 4 kids of my own, and trust me, they weren't like this. So media, come on up, and we'll do some one-on-ones. Thank you all for being here today, and go BC basketball.
Oh, wow.
Tom Davis, Barry Williams,
Yeah.
Jimmy Bryant.
A legendary time.